Thank you very much, Benoît, for this. Now, I know, Erik, that we have questions on Twitter for you.
Absolutely. We have a question here to Benoît regarding if you can give a good example of a smart city implementation.
Well,
maybe Stockholm is a good example.
I don't want to offend anyone here, but
No, please don't.
So yes. No. The point I want to make is I don't think there is. I mean, that's why I don't like this terminology "smart city" so much. Where do you stop? At which point do you suddenly become smart? And do you stop there? Right? No, I'm smart now. I don't need to go any further.
Enough, yeah.
So it's very hard to say, which one is smart. As Patrick pointed, there's a lot of services that could be done better in Stockholm. So clearly, if Stockholm is smart, it can still get smarter. So I mean, and I'm not in the business of rankings, so it's very hard for me to answer that. What I can do is point to cities that have done some really interesting applications or initiatives, right? And the one I was talking about in Nice is really interesting because they actually used it to pay for the underlying infrastructure. So they understood this issue. And they said, okay, this is our first service. We're going to make sure it pays for the infrastructure that's going to power the next services. And it's not a ubiquitous infrastructure in the sense of it going into every home, because that's not what they wanted to do. But they know that every street is now covered in the city with their own infrastructure that they can access. And this is really a smart initiative. Does that make them a smart city? They would say yes. I would say we'll see in 20 years. But
Okay. So future will tell. Now, Swedish municipalities, they have a lot of high degree of independence. How does this affect, what difference does it make when it comes to fiber, would you say?
What do you mean by independence?
They can decide, whether they will put fiber and where they will put fiber on their own, so to say?
My understanding of the dynamics here is that in the 90s, there was a very favorable context for infrastructure to be deployed by cities, and a lot of them took advantage of that. I'm not absolutely convinced that if this movement was happening now, Sweden would take so much advance on the rest of the world. You were there 15 years before because of luck, to some extent, as was pointed out earlier, because of some smart policing from central government, and indeed the freedom of municipalities to make choices about their own future. I'm sure all of that helped. But I think the luck element was part of it. If I can just take 5 minutes to mention this little anecdote. When I came here 3 years ago to study and research the white paper that I published on Stokab, I met with the politicians who were at the origin of the decision, of the political decision to do this. And one of them told me, he said, we weren't thinking of like visionary high bandwidth applications. We were thinking of stopping people from digging the streets. Of course, there was a bit of vision in there as well. I'm not saying it's just that. But my point is, quite often pragmatism in the issues that you face today will lead you to take decisions that will have impacts 15 years down the line. And it's great that they had this initiative. And I think the really groundbreaking thing here, which was told at the time, which was said to me at the time, which really struck me, was this liberal conservative politician saying, we didn't see this as building a new public service, which we would have opposed. We saw this as building new roads, which of course we're in favor of. And I think that's the crucial difference between Sweden and the rest of Europe, or maybe Scandinavia and the rest of Europe, although I don't want to lump you all together. You have so many fine differences.
But this one turned out very well. But if you were to give advice to other politicians in the cities, would you say more pragmatism or more visionary thinking? Or both?
Well, I think when it comes to fiber infrastructure, we're way past visionary thinking. I mean, it's not revolutionary today as a city decision maker to think we need our own infrastructure. That we're past the vision. It's actually a very pragmatic decision today, I think.
Here and now, yeah.
The vision would be maybe on other stuff that I can't fathom because I'm too pragmatic. But but that's my point. I think that there was certainly a combination of pragmatism and vision, but it was very down to earth, that decision, the way it happened. And that's the interesting thing to me. Because if you have too much vision and not enough pragmatism, you get nowhere
Nothing
either.
happens. No, that's true. Benoît will be back later in the panel discussion, so we
Thank
save
you
up your
very much.
questions for later. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.